Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Texan Senior Residential Care Homes, ATD Painting, and Performance Food Group. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes, senior care at its best with a family atmosphere. Obviously, if all seniors had the option, they would be living at home, but sometimes that isn't always possible. Well, guess what? That is where Texan Senior Residential Care Homes comes into the picture. Texan specializes in making its facilities as close to a home living experience as possible. I'm talking full living room, kitchen, dining room, cable TV, music, games, fireplace, you name it. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes has it. They've even got home cooked meals by experts. It's an extra throw-in. Not only that, there are no move-in fees, no visitation restrictions, so your loved ones are free to stop by and visit anytime they please. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes are located at I-635 and Marsh Lane in Dallas, right near Carrollton. For more info, you can call 469-400-7650. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes. And now, let's podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I'm being joined by Justin Thomas, sports editor for our Denton County papers, as well as Taylor Ragland, who does sports for the Plano Star-Courier, Allen American, and Lake City Sun. And gentlemen, it's game week. It's finally here. The first week of high school football season is upon us. We finally made it, and that means we got one more preview podcast. We're going to preview one more district. We've exhausted every other district that we cover, everything from private schools to 4A to 5A, our 6A districts, and now we close things down with a look at District 6A. Some love for a few of our Denton County schools out in Flower Mound, Lewisville, and Coppell. A couple quick notes beforehand. Last week was the official release of our 6th annual Star Local Media Gridiron Preview. That is our all-market football tab, previewing every district, every team that we cover. You can check that out on our website at starlocalmedia.com. Also, last season we debuted our Game of the Week project, and we're going to bring that back sure enough. So if you go to the website, once again, starlocalmedia.com, you can vote on each week. We're going to pick 5 in-market games, 5 of the highlight in-market games that will be they're going to be on our radar for that week. So you can check that out, vote on who you think is going to be the winner, and then whoever ends up winning the ballot is going to be. We'll reveal that for Thursday's podcast. We're going to tie the two projects together. So take a look at the website, vote on Game of the Week, some quality candidates to choose from to get things rolling, including a couple that pertain to some of these schools that we're going to be talking about in District 6A. So let's just get right to it, Justin. It's going to be a very Justin Thomas-centric podcast. This is this is probably the district that you'll be covering most of, throughout the season, more than any others. Obviously, you have a million schools on your plate, but this district going to be of pretty special attention just because of the unique configuration that we got here with Lewisville ISD reuniting with Coppell. Yeah, should make for some fun fireworks on the gridiron. So as a quick catch up on just who's in this district, just get that out of the way. Coppell, then your Class 6A Lewisville ISD schools, so Hebron, Flower Mound, Lewisville, and Marcus. And then rounding out the district will be the 3 Irving ISD schools, so Irving High, MacArthur, and Nimitz. So let's we can go a bunch of different ways to start with this one, Justin. Any one school you wanted to get out of the way to start?
No, not really. How about just a little background information on the district to start?
Go for it.
Some big names in the district, but surprisingly, you might be surprised that only 2 teams in this district actually made the playoffs last year. That was Coppell and Hebron. So both of those teams will be looking for returns. The other schools looking to try to get back to the playoffs, and some lengthy streaks for some of those teams when you look at kind of Lewisville, Flower Mound, and some of the Irving stuff. And then the other kind of crazy thing is this district actually has only 2 starting quarterbacks returning. Neither of those actually started the full year last year, so no quarterback in this district has a quote-unquote full season of starts under their belt.
That's pretty rare, you gotta think.
That's a good year to be a first-year starter then, I would guess.
I guess.
Everybody's on an even playing field.
Company.
Lots of quarterbacks to keep eyes on in this district, and I guess that kind of start with one of the teams I think has a chance to win this district. We'll get to predictions, I guess, later, but we'll start with Coppell. Had a strong year last year, won their district. They were in 9-6A last year, went undefeated in 9-6A, made the 3rd round of the playoffs. Lost in excruciating fashion, as Coppell
seems
to do every season, unfortunatally.
So bad for those Cowboys.
They don't just go out in the playoffs. They really got to stomach punch you. But so they lost in overtime when a missed extra point prevented a second overtime. So that was against Cedar Ridge. But big thing for Coppell, lots of talent coming back. I think this is going to be a very quality football team. Lots of players, different positions all over the ball, but kind of got to start at quarterback. Brady McBride was there for 3 years, 3-year starter. He's now at Memphis. So big shoes to fill there. They actually got a transfer from Houston Yates, Taj Gregory, but he hasn't locked down the job. It could be Drew Siniglia, who was a JV, I hope I'm saying that right, Drew, JV quarterback last year, so still a little bit of a competition there. And if I had to pick, I would actually say maybe Siniglia has the leg up right now. If I had to pick who's going to start on Friday against Sexy, I would pick him. So we'll see how that plays out, but obviously going to be some growing pains there, probably trying to, they haven't had a quarterback there in 3 years since Brady McBride. It was, pretty awesome. So, but fortunately, their quarterback is going to be pretty. He's got a lot of weapons around him.
Yeah,
Coppell.
Sure.
If you want to start down low, this is a team that might very well could have the best offensive line in the area, one of the best ones in the state. They have multiple returners. They have a standout center. So they only have one new starter breaking in there, and everybody seems to be real optimistic about their line between Brian Dashner and Trevor Stang, who have been on the varsity since they were freshmen. And then, as I said, the center, junior Garrison Wheatley, he's really flying up the recruiting boards. He's a name that's he's gonna be a big-time D1 player. So, very good offensive line. Ryan Hurt comes back. He was second-team All-District running back last year. And then at receiver, they should be loaded. Blake Jackson led the team last year. He was back for his senior year. He was first team. And then they have the two-way players, Jonathan McGill, KJ Liggins. So pretty loaded at the skill positions. Just going to come down to the quarterback play, I think, offensively, at least for them. So,
the Coppell's affinity for two-way players is always something that fascinates me, just because it's 6A. You don't really have too many teams that make use of players on both sides of the ball. Yeah. But it really speaks to the talent of Jonathan McGill and KJ Liggins that they have that much confidence in them. What do you think it is about Coppell that makes a coach like Coach DeWitt think outside the box and these guys are better suited on both sides of the ball versus making them lock down one specific position?
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting, and it's not exactly because they've had a lack of playmakers at one position or the other. Like last year, you look at a guy like Gabe Lemons, wide receiver, cornerback. It's not like they were hurting for pass catching options or defensive back options, but he still goes both ways. You see a lot of that with McGill and Liggins, and let's not limit them to just offense and defense. They're big players in special teams in the return game as well, both of them. I think they both might have had a return touchdown last year, actually. I know Liggins did for sure, but I guess just with the depth they have, they don't have to put too much pressure on them. They don't have to have them out there for every snap on defense or every snap on offense, and I guess that just kind of, more opportunities to get those guys the ball in their hand, because they're both, I would say, traditionally defensive players. Like if you're projecting them at the college level, I think most colleges would be looking at them in the defensive backfield. But they're just too talented to not get the ball in their hands some as well. So
with Coppell, they're perennially one of the better teams in the Metroplex year in, year out. They're at least according to some publications, they're the on-paper favorite to win this district title.
They are the lone team that the coaches voted in the regional poll. They're the only team that made the top 10 in the Region 1 poll from this district. So
that's a little surprising. Hebron wouldn't get any votes.
Maybe it's just, we'll get to them. Maybe it's that uncertainty at quarterback there as well. But Coppell was the only one that was voted in, so we'll see how that plays out. But
do you kind of foresee a kind of a similar year as normal for Coppell? Just what do you ultimately see the Cowboys doing this season?
I think whoever ends up taking the starting quarterback job is going to be capable of moving the offense. Like I said, I don't think they're going to have to rely on them to win the games for them. I think their defense is going to be sound. They have some other key defensive players back. We didn't talk about guys like Justin Murray in the secondary, J.R. Barker, Odette is a guy down low that they're really expecting a big season from. So they're gonna be a good defense like they always are. They have great offensive line. So I think this is going to be a typical Coppell team, making the playoffs and capable of winning a few games in the playoffs. And talking to the captains, Dashner and McGill, last week when I was out there at practice, they haven't forgot about that Cedar Ridge game or the Round Rock game 2 years ago. And this team is motivated to get over that third round hump because they've been right there, the last 2 or 3 years.
I wonder if them being back in Region 1 means we get to reprise the good old Coppell DeSoto playoff rivalry.
Certainly a possibility. And just another note, when I was talking to those guys too, they're very excited about this 6A district. Obviously not their quote-unquote rivals. You might say Southlake is their rival, but a lot of schools that they're bumped up right next to, Flower Mound, Lewisville, and a lot of Hebron, a lot of players that they're familiar with growing up. So they were very excited to get back in this district, and to see some of these teams again.
Let's shift gears to Hebron, another team that is going through a similar transition at quarterback. Kind of size up the big storyline heading into the season for the Hawks, probably, as we just alluded to.
Yeah, very similar. Like Coppell with the 3-year starter, they had a 3-year Division I quarterback, Clayton Toon, so big shoes to fill there. They're going with Carson Harris. He was the JV quarterback last year. I kind of think he was the JV quarterback last year just to get more reps. Everybody knew Clayton Toon, barring an injury to Clayton Toon, nobody was getting snaps at varsity. So I think they just wanted to get him more, game snaps rather than just, sitting the bench behind Toon all last year. So I don't think he was JV for a lack of talent or anything like that. He's going to be pretty talented. He took Hebron to the state 7-on-7 tournament this summer. Looked good in spring ball. Talking to Coach Brian Razzle, had another good fall camp. So I think they're pretty comfortable with him there. But like you said, it is a new quarterback after 3 years. So, but like I said, whereas Coppell has their whole line coming back in front of them, the other big question for Hebron is their offensive line. They lost 4 starters. Blake Barber is the only one back. So Coach Brazzell said he liked what he saw, in spring and in fall camp this year, but until you actually get out there and get in a game, it's really tough to tell from just those practices. Although he did say they equated themselves pretty well in a scrimmage against Allen, so I guess who best to gauge against than Allen, but.
And it also helps if you're going to ease Carson Harrison, and obviously helps to have one of the best receivers in the entire country to throw to.
Absolutely, they got a 5-star Oklahoma commit, Trajan Bridges there. His numbers weren't necessarily eye-popping last year, but this was a team that had 3 receivers that made all-district. They had David Leonte, actually 4, with DeAndre Warren, David Leonte, and then, of course, Jaron Mitchell going to play Division I football, too. So maybe targets on the rise, but actually maybe teams could focus on Trajan Bridges
more
a little
attention
more.
for him.
So we'll see how that dynamic kind of plays out. But this is a guy that just get the ball in his hands and let him go. He's a dynamic athlete. And then you got to give a little shout out to Jalen Lott too. Jaden Taylor was a big running back for them last year, but Jalen Lott was the newcomer of the year, and now he's ready to kind of be their bell cow running back, and he's another exciting player.
With Hebron and much like Coppell, they've just been consistent as it gets. Probably it's safe to say probably the most consistent team out of Lewisville ISD.
Certainly over the
so
past,
and they won't have to worry about drawing a reigning state champion in the first round most likely this season. So with kind of just talk a bit about do you foresee a chance where they could challenge Coppell for that district title? How do you see the Hawks season panning out?
I definitely think they could challenge Coppell for this championship. They're gonna. I was looking at the schedule. They get going kind of pretty early, the second district game. So not a lot of time.
Hebron has a bye the first week of district. That's interesting. That's always.
Well, they all have the buys on that same week, that 21st. But the second week of district is when Coppell and Hebron are going to play. They should be pretty tested, pretty challenging non-district schedule when you look at Plano, Arlington, Martin, and Keller Fossil Ridge. So a lot of this district is going to be pretty tested when you look at their non-district schedules. Coppell has a pretty challenging one too.
They open with Saxe,
and Plano, Allen on there. But I think going to be pretty similar. This, like you said, one of the more consistent teams. They've pretty regularly been able to kind of replenish the cupboard, not really have to quote unquote rebuild. So I would expect the line to come along, and they're going to be pretty good on defense. Darius Snow is one of the standout defensive backs. They lose Verone McKinley, big loss, but talking to Coach Brazzell, Diego Johnson and Ryan Ollison, a couple baseball players, are expected to kind of step into those starting cornerback roles, and their safeties are really good. And so it's going to come down, I think a lot of Hebron's success is going to come down to what happens in the trenches, both on offense and defense.
Will it be enough to get over the Plano hurdle on Thursday?
Yes, it will be.
That is so weird, because when you look at the seasons that they've had in recent years versus Plano, which was able to scrape in, get the last playoff spot out of 6-6A last year, and missed the playoffs the 2 years prior, but they've got a 2-game winning streak against Hebron in these season openers, and
they dominated them 2 years ago.
It was they ran them off the field in the woodshed, if I recall.
Yeah, it was,
Teams never do that, and one of those cases where you leave that first game thinking like, man, what's wrong with Hebron, and man, Plano might be back this year, and then things inevitably have kind of leveled off after after that opener. But that's just so weird that in hindsight that they've had the troubles that they've had against Plano, and obviously Plano's a quality team for sure, but with Hebron, a team that you associate with being in the district title conversation and making nice playoff runs, a little weird that they've just been tripped up at the start against a team that's been kind of just a fringe playoff team in its district.
Maybe it's just something to do with just kind of how fundamentally sound those teams are at the start of the year, and Plano, J-Don always has them ready to to go and stuff. So, like you said, no, it's not like they're.
Oh yeah, it's not like they're getting run off by a team that like went winless the year before.
I was a little surprised by the score 2 years ago, and then I was a little surprised by the result last year because obviously I had big expectations for that Hebron team last year. Not that they disappointed; they still had a really good season.
And it was a funky game too. They lost 27-26, but only because they botched an extra point on the game-tying touchdown inside the final minute. So let's shift gears. So we've talked about Coppell and Hebron, the two teams that do have existing playoff streaks. We're going to have two brand new playoff teams in this district. So let's talk a bit about the rest of Lewisville ISD. I guess one team which might have a leg up depending on how you feel about the weight of certain positions. But we've talked about the quarterback situation throughout the district. Flower Mound does have a bit of an advantage there, and they do have a returner who didn't begin last year as a starter, but was thrust into that spotlight and did okay. Just talk a little bit about the Jaguars heading into this season.
I would say Blake Short is going to be a junior this season, so just a sophomore last year, having to start those last 8 games. And I would actually say, in terms of moving the offense, I think he did more than okay. He completed 50% of his passes, a little better than that, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns. Talking to Coach Brian Basil over there, not Brian Brazel, Brian Basil.
That doesn't get confusing. How many times have you mixed that up?
Surprisingly, not too much.
Okay.
And not when I've talked to them either. I've never called one of them Brazel or Basil, but the thing they're really focusing on with Blake Short is they got to reduce the turnovers. Just last year, just a sophomore, but he had those 11 touchdowns, did have 15 interceptions though, so that's something they're really focusing on. They lost the turnover battle overall in the season, and I think every game but 2 maybe. So that's the real key for them, is not only limiting the turnovers, but maybe forcing a few more turnovers, and that's something they think can really turn things around, because Flower Mound was a team that was kind of right on the outside of that playoffs. One win here or there in each of the last 2 years could have got them in. So they've been kind of knocking on that door and are looking to get back since, I think, first time since 2011 maybe. So so it's been a little bit. This is another team that they do have a good quarterback. Kind of a trend for this district is a lot of returning talent at the skill position. So you have Welch coming, I almost called him Matt Welch. Jake Welch coming back.
I'm not athletic enough to play high school football anymore.
He's been a multi-year starter. He's back. He's kind of been banged up a little bit as a sophomore and junior, but he's healthy now, expecting a big year from him at wide receiver. And then Pierce Hudgins at running back. He was an all-district running back as a sophomore last year, and he's a guy I have to really look out for this year. And Flower Mound's another team that's pretty has a lot more stability in the offensive line. They have 3 starters back, so they're pretty comfortable about where they're at there. So I think this is going to be an offense that can move the ball. Where we talked about Coppell and Hebron losing their quote-unquote leaders and quarterbacks. Flower Mound lost their leader too, even though it wasn't a quarterback. They lost Connor Lee, just one of the best linebackers that I've covered since I've been here. Might not have the size and everything to be the big D1 commit, but man, he was a monster on the field, just a tackle machine. So not only replacing him on the field, but the leadership he brought. He was a 3-year starter as well. So that's going to be a big question for them, but they do have some talent coming back. Another name to look out for is Colin Alves on the defensive line. He had 50 tackles, 3 sacks last year, so he's going to be a disruptive force there. And then their defensive backs they have coming back, Dre Owen and Corbin Clatterbaugh, are both very talented. So good secondary, see how things come along down low without Connor Lee kind of leading the defense there.
For what it's worth, I don't know how much stock anyone puts in 7-on-7, but what little 7-on-7 of Flower Mound I got to see, that offense did definitely pass the eye test. The quarterback receiver connections were strong.
Yeah, they should have some playmakers. They have size out there, so I think as long as they can limit those turnovers and force more turnovers, I think Flower Mound's going to be a pretty sound team. Whereas
Flower Mound is a team that is, should be pretty solidified for the passing game. Let's shift gears to a team like Marcus, which is solidified in the run game for sure. They got one of the top running backs in the state, sure enough, top running back in the district in Justin Dinka. Let's talk a little bit about the Marauders and what their forecast looks like this season.
Mentioned Dinka, he's got over nearly 3,000 yards over the past 2 seasons. Kind of came out of nowhere as a Coppell transfer as a sophomore and was pretty much all state basically. Was off to a similar start last year, and then once they got into district, really once they started playing, once they got to that Hebron game and then on, things just really changed. The defense just stacked the box. They had trouble throwing the ball, and they really just shut him down. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you look at his yards per carry, and yards from the first 5 games to the second 5 games. It's staggering. It's like double, or half, I should say. And it's they took a big hit when they lost standout Justin Osborne transferring to the IMG Academy over the offseason. Yeah, pesky IMG. So that's going to hurt them a little bit, but I still think they should have a pretty solid offensive line. Not sure who's going to start under quarterback yet. They're looking at Carter Burr and a transfer, Garrett Nussmeier, who's his dad is a tight ends coach for the Cowboys. So he's moved in from Florida, and so he's in competition with Carter for the starting quarterback job. So we'll see kind of how that matures throughout the non-district season, get ready for district. Defense should be pretty good. They have some real playmakers. Marcel Brooks, one of the premier players in the state, in the country. He's an LSU commit. He's transferred after his sophomore year at Fort Worth Nolan. So this is his second year with the Marcus defense under Kevin Atkinson. So expecting big things from him. And then up front, John Brand is another guy you can expect a big season from. And then another guy I'm really thinking of is Ethan Barr and Jabil Dar. These 2 guys should kind of elevate into more playmaking roles, more household names, I guess you would say. So I think the defense is going to be very strong. Obviously, Dinka's beast at running back, so we'll see what happens with the quarterback position.
It remains a mystery how Marcel Brooks somehow didn't make the all-district team last season. I always wonder what, I don't know, what the machinations of these all-district meetings are, and just how much.
I mean, you look at the stats: 48 tackles, 12 sacks. I don't really know what went into
how many kids in that district had double-digit sacks.
So, I don't think he'll miss it this year, though.
I hope not. So let's take a look at another team that I think, at least for our at least preliminary expectations, should be pretty solid on defense.
Yes.
Mighty Lewisville. Let's talk about those fighting Farmers, JT.
The Farmers actually lead all the teams in this district in returning all-district players, and they all come back on the defensive side. They have 5 all-district defenders coming back. So, yes, I have very high expectations for this Lewisville defense.
Is this the year?
Second-year coach Michael Odell, excuse me. But yeah, Kevin Anderson is probably the leader. He's made all-district as a sophomore and junior, so he's back in the secondary. Corey Miller, Dalen Clark, also all-district players in the secondary. So we talked about some of those receivers, Blake Jackson and Trajan Bridges. Well, we'll see what they can do against this Lewisville secondary and vice versa. And then, of course, I don't want to leave out Cajun Johnson and Christian Versey. They also had big years last year. So yeah, I think this defense is going to be very good. Might be the best defense in the district.
It's a good place to be when there's 6 first-year quarterbacks having a good defense and pressuring guys that haven't had to handle it before.
So Lewisville is one of those first-year quarterback schools, and they actually have a transfer as well. They're going to be looking to A.J. Newsom, who comes from Putnam City in Oklahoma, and Coach Odell has a lot of good things to say about this kid, not only with his arm, but just the way he's been able to come in and grasp the offense. He seems to have a very good knowledge of the playbook and how to run things, and from a leadership perspective, everybody seems to really be responding to him. So we'll have to see what he does in the game, but so far, through practice and everything, nobody could be more pleased with how A.J. Newsom's played.
What year is he?
He's senior.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it will be, no matter what, probably the 6th consecutive year next year they have a different quarterback.
Yeah.
Sounds like Plano.
Yeah, that's very much like Plano.
But yeah, so, not only quarterback questions, at the skill positions as well, they're looking at a committee at running back. They're working, 3 or 4 running backs right now. And then at receiver, they lost their big play guy, Brandon Rolfe. So we'll see who develops that receiver. But I know Miller and Clark, the defensive backs, are going to be incorporated in the passing game a lot. So Lewisville, another school that's going to use a lot of two-way players, especially secondary/wide receiver there.
Seems like that's probably the most popular two-way. Just, you have an athlete and that kind of speed. Why wouldn't you? Take a chance, try to throw them the ball every once in a while and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, you've already got, you're assumed to have some of the best hands on the team in that spot, so it's a very natural transition. So.
150-yard touchdown may be enough to justify it. There you go, one big explosive play.
So, we've still got a little bit more to talk about the district. We've got some potential. We can each give a game of the district game of the game to watch. Give you 3 games to watch for this last preview podcast. Plus, Justin will give his top 4. We're going to put him on the spot. I know he's been racking his brain over which 4 teams are going to come out in this district. Well, we're going to figure out who they are in a word after. I'm sorry, I should say in a moment after a word from the sponsor.
In one word.
Let's take a quick break to talk about ATD painting. Whether it's painting, staining, carpentry, residential, commercial, interior, exterior, if you need it painted, ATD Painting has got you covered. At ATD Painting, their goal is to provide a home improvement experience that is a great value, trouble-free, and enjoyable. And painting is really just kind of scratching the surface as to what these appointments entail. For ATD Painting's interior projects, things like painting, wall repair, ceiling repair, they'll make sure that your floors and furniture are protected and that everything is all cleaned up afterwards. For exterior projects, not only will they do the painting, but they will hand scrape loose paint, reattach loose boards, recalc windows or doors, plus much more. Not only that, if you visit their website right now, atdpainting.com, you can find a coupon for $200 off a complete exterior purchase. Once again, ATD Painting. They've got 4 locations in the Metroplex, including in Plano and Lewisville. For more information, call 972-694-8888 or visit atdpainting.com. That is ATD Painting. Check it out to see just how affordable professional painting can be. And now, let's get back to the podcast. And let's continue our discussion of District 66A as we conclude our series of high school football district preview podcasts. We've already discussed the teams within our markets within the district, so let's round it out the same way that we have these previous preview podcasts, and that's by talking games to watch and playoff predictions. So we've each come up with a game to watch on the District 66A schedule that stands out. So let's just give you just a quick summation of just why that game is notable. So Taylor, what'd you come up with?
Sure. I will take kind of the glaring one. I'll take the Mound Showdown, the 19th edition of the Mound Showdown. Basically just, when you look at this game, it's got everything you want in a rivalry. The last four of the last 5, I think, less than 10 points, which is, what else can you ask for when
overtimes?
Yeah, when crosstown rivals go up against one another, you never want, at least as a neutral observer, I guess, you never want to blow out. You want kind of that quintessential rivalry game, and this appears to have all the makings of another one. And it also with, we talked a little bit about in the first half of the podcast that there's a lot of teams in this district that haven't made the playoffs in a long time, and somebody's got to get in. So, for, the first time in a while, or especially, I guess, just this year, looking at, the potential playoff picture, this could go a long way for one of these teams. Flower Mound gets the win here. That's a real leg up at trying to get that 3rd or 4th seed or wherever they may end up. So it's always a good game. It's been going on almost 20 years now, and this year it may have some extra implications as far as who ends up where. So I'll go with that one.
Justin, where did you land on your game to watch out of this district?
Why don't you go, and then I'll go to my game of the week, because it's going to transition a little more into my prediction.
Aha! All right, so whereas we just talked about, the most is the Mound Showdown, or is Lewisville Marcus got a heads up from just a sheer rivalry history standpoint? Would you say
the Battle of the Axe, Marcus?
Battle of the Axe
has been around longer. Okay. We're going into year 33 there, I believe.
Okay, so we just talked about a game though with plenty of storied history in the Mound Showdown. My game's not a rivalry game, but it's a game that could very well feature the 2 teams that are expected to vie for the district championship, and that is Coppell at Hebron on October 5th. These 2 teams, again, as we've discussed, they are at least just on paper expected to be the top 2 teams in the district. They're both they're both in similar situations. We've just talked about replacing 3-year starting quarterbacks with, their otherwise unproven players at the position. They're both equally decked out in the skill positions and whatnot, and just when you factor that in, it should be, at least on paper, a pretty back and forth matchup. Obviously, Coppell having the line that they do might give them a bit of an early advantage.
Yeah.
But when you factor in, the consistency of these 2 programs, I will though factor in just from a recency standpoint. Coppell's got a 5-game win streak over Hebron, dating all the way back. Hebron hadn't won since 2008, so it's been a decade. So we'll see if they can snap that trend. They do have the benefit of playing at home at the Woodshed, a notoriously difficult place to play. But October 5th could very well be your de facto district championship game.
Also, that game might have one of the, we kind of alluded to some of these players earlier, but one of the better kind of one-on-one matchups when McGill and Bridges kind of lock down.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
So that should be fun to watch.
That's a good point too. Yeah.
That brings me to my game of the week, or the year, I should say, and probably shouldn't be much surprise. I'm picking the Axe game, the 33rd Axe game. Marcus has a 17-14-1 advantage, and they've actually taken 10 of the last 11. Lewisville got it 2 years ago, pretty surprised, dominating fashion, but Marcus regained the Axe and brought it back to Flower Mound last year, and the thing I'm really excited about this one is it's going to be the last game of the season this year. Since I've been working here, this has never been the last game of the season, the regular season finale. And talking predictions, I think Coppell is going to win the district. Mm-hmm. I think Hebron is going to finish second. I like what Flower Mound has with Blake Short, so that means the Axe game will determine the fourth playoff berth from 6-6A. Sorry, Irving ISD, but you're getting shut out again. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to take Lewisville to win the Axe game and make the playoffs. I think these are going to be two good defenses. I think the offenses are going to have a tough time moving the ball, and I think Lewisville's defense is going to slow down Justin Dinka and the Marcus ground game enough to get Lewisville its first playoff berth since 2008.
A decade, right?
When I first started working here under Steve Gaddis. I think the Farmers are going to do it. I like this defense. I think they're going to pull this game out. If this is in fact the game it comes down to, mm-hmm. I think they're going to pull this one out, and I think Lewisville is going to make the playoffs. I do like this Marcus team, but only 4 teams make it. I think there's 5 quality teams in this district, and I think Marcus is going to be the odd man out.
It's really going to come down to that, just who has the best head-to-head record among those top 5.
It really might come down to the 3-way round robin between Flower Mound, Lewisville, and Marcus, unless somebody's going to upset Coppell or Hebron. It's preseason. Here's your bulletin board material, but I don't think anybody's going to beat those teams. I think Coppell and Hebron are a little cut above the other teams, and I think it's going to come down to that round robin between those 3 teams for who gets in, and I'm going to take the Farmers to edge out the Marauders.
And there you have it, folks. That is a look at District 6-6A. That concludes this. It feels like this series began a while back, but yes, we have touched on every single district, every single team that we will be covering for the upcoming football season. And with that, that's it. That will do it for this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. We'll be back on Thursday to talk some Week 1. We'll preview some of the
game of the week.
Yep, some of the highlight games on the docket for Week 1. In the meantime, folks, this has been Matt Welch. Taylor, Justin, appreciate y'all for tagging along, folks. You keep enjoying your week, and we will talk to y'all later. Thanks for checking out this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast, brought to you by Performance Food Group. Performance Food Group delivers more than 150,000 food and related products to customers all across the country. If you want to get in on that process, PFG just might have a spot for you. Their McKinney office is currently hiring. Job openings include Class A CDL drivers and warehouse order selectors, as well as many other entry and part-time positions. An ideal choice for college students or people just wanting to find new careers in general. For more information, you can visit their website at pfgc.com/careers for more job openings. If you prefer to contact them by phone, you can call at 214-491-3130 for more details. Once again, that is Performance Food Group, located in McKinney at 500 Metro Park Drive.